If you have never heard of Neal McDonough, it's because you most likely only know his face. That piercing blue eye stare is hard to forget. To kick off Neal's story, first, here are the few fun facts you may not know. McDonough has a naturally intense stare, which makes him perfect for playing villains. But in reality, he's super friendly guy. He has joked that he can't help looking like a bad guy even when he is just ordering coffee. His deep, intense voice has led some fans to joke that he makes in-game characters sound too terrifying, even when they aren't supposed to be. Because he plays so many villains, McDonough's kids have jokingly asked him if he is actually evil in real life. He's reassured them that he's just acting, but it must be confusing when your dad keeps getting beaten up by superheroes. Neal McDonough's childhood nickname was Headster, due to his brothers teasing him about the size of his head. Neal is known for his love for peanut butter and raspberry jam on toast, which he enjoys every morning with his coffee. He has stated that his favorite car is an El Camino Royal Knight, which his wife bought him to celebrate his 1 year of sobriety. Neal's story starts in the sun-drenched summer of Cape Cod, where Neal grew up with the salt air in his lungs and had a Boston accent rolling off his tongue. Boston boy, as he would say with a proud chuckle. It was a place Neal loved fiercely, a tight-knit world of family, friends, and baseball dreams. Yet one he drifted from over the years. Life had taken him far from those shores to Hollywood's bright lights and action-packed sets. But the pull of home never let go. I miss it more than you could possibly imagine, he'd confess, thinking of his family still back there, his childhood buddies, and the memories tied to every corner of his hometown. For years, Neal had not returned. Not since his dad passed away, a loss that left a quiet ache in his heart. But then came the summer that changed it all. Neal got a call, a one-night gig back in Boston, a chance to step into the shoes of the infamous Whitey Bulger, the notorious gangster who once ruled the city's shadows. It wasn't a movie or a TV show, it was a live stage play. And Neal? He jumped at it. The catch? He barely had time to prepare. While the cast had been rehearsing for weeks, Neal was tied up filming another project. He showed up that day, script in hand, lines half memorized from a couple of weeks of stolen moments. "Are you ready?" they asked him. "Yeah, I'm ready," he shot back, his confidence unshaken. "Where are my spots?" They pointed there, and over there, and he nodded, stepping into the chaos like he was born for it. What followed was magic. The words penned by his high school pal Casey Sherman and co-writer Dave Wedge flowed like they have been written just for him. Neal had never played a Boston character quite like Whitey before, gritty, commanding, larger than life, and he dove in headfirst. On stage he became the man lost in the role, delivering monologues with a fire that lit up the room. The audience, his high school buddies plus relatives, friends, and his brother Bob, watched in awe. When the final line landed, the place erupted. A standing ovation roared through the theater, and Neal stood there, heart pounding, soaking in it. His wife Hervé, his rock for over 20 years, was there too, beaming from the crowd. "One of the most incredible nights of my life," Neal would later say, still buzzing from the thrill. But this wasn't just a triumph of talent, it was a homecoming. Neal's roots stretched deep into the Cape Cod soil, where he grew up swinging bats and slapping pucks. Back in the days, there was a motel, a summer hop for Cape League baseball scouts. Neal, a lanky kid with a killer arm, idolized the Baltimore Orioles, not the Red Sox, much to his buddy's confusion. "What are you doing?" they would tease. "You're in Boston." But Neal had his hero, Jim Palmer, the pitcher who wore number 22. Neal wore it too. All through college, hurling fastballs and dreaming big. And he could hit too, baseballs and slap shots alike, talents that marked him early as a kid blessed with something special. It was sort of funny to see Neal at Barnstable High School playing for the Red Raiders in orange cleats and Bunbury's old gloves. Neal got those from T-Bone Giordano, the head of scouting who was regular at the hotel. Growing up, Cape Cod offered exactly two paths: sports or trouble. Neal saw friends veer towards the latter, making dumb choices that led nowhere good. I didn't want to be that guy, he decided. At 16, everything shifted. A Catholic retreat called Echo cracked him open. Not just his faith, but his whole outlook. He would be the smart aleck kid, quick with cutting quid to keep the world at bay. But on the retreat, the light flickered on. Maybe I could use this for something positive, he thought, and he did. Suddenly, average grades turned into A's. Sports went from a casual pastime to a focused passion. The class clown became class president, the most popular kid in the room. We're all got kids, he realized, brothers and sisters rooting for each other, not tearing each other down. That seismic shift at 16 launched him forward. He stepped onto a stage, felt the rush of an audience hanging on his words, and he knew he found something. Theater grabbed hold of him. Baseball and hockey faded and politics flirted with the ambitions, but acting, that was the spark that caught fire. Picture a small, weathered motel in Hyannis, Massachusetts, a mom-and-pop joint run by the McDonough family, where 6 kids grew up amidst the hum of summer tourists and the clink of quarters in the Coke machine. That's where Neal McDonough's story begins. A freckled, chubby kid with a mop of hair. He was the family's secret weapon, ushered out at 6 or 7 to charm potential guests. Here is the room, he'd say with a grin, 2 double beds, color TV, air conditioning, and we just got HBO. Do you know what HBO is? Well, let me tell you about it. His mom knew he could sell anything to anyone even then. It was a simpler time, a different time, and Neal was the motel's pin-size hustler, learning life's lessons from picking one cigarette butt at a time. His dad had a knack for business and a way of keeping Neal busy. At 3 years old, he would toddle out the parking lot picking up butts for a quarter. Task done, he'd sprint to the Coke machine, clutching his hard-earned prize, only to realize years later the genius of it. His dad charged a guest for $2 for that soda, paid Neal a quarter, and got it back when the kid bought one. A perfect cycle. Sitting still wasn't an option either. If Neal lingered in the kitchen for more than 30 seconds, his dad would bark, "Go bring a fridge to 219, paint something, mow the lawn, do something." The only escape? A spray-painted rectangular on the wall out front. Spring and summer he would hurl fastballs into it. Winter, he would shoot pucks. And it's the only time his dad would let Neal stay and not do chores. Hours melted away as he dreamed of World Series glory, narrating imaginary showdowns in his head. 3 to count, Craig Nettles at the plate. "How am I going to pitch this?" he would mutter, mimicking Jim Palmer's sky-high leg kick in the mirror, over and over until it was perfect. That wall became his sanctuary, the one place his dad, watching from the window, would not interrupt. They never played catch, not once, except for a hilarious moment at Neal's bachelor party years later. But those solitary hours built something in him, a love for the pressure cooker, a pinpoint accuracy born from relentless practice, and a quiet confidence that would carry him far beyond Highness. Neal carved a niche as Hollywood go-to villain, a face you know in shows like Suits, Arrows, The 100s, and movies too numerous to tally. How many movies was Neal part of? Hundreds. I don't know, he would laugh, shrugging off the count. But he doesn't look back. Not at his own work anyway. It's odd to me, he'd say, and I don't want it bleeding into the next role. The past is closed book. He lives in the now, thriving in the heat of the moment. That heat is where he shines. Take the time he was strapped into a gurney for 88 minutes movie, staring down Al Pacino as a killer about to face the needle. Hooked to a blood pressure monitor, he watched the numbers climb 88 beats per minute as nerves kicked in. Then the scene started, and he slipped into the character. When it ended, he glanced at the monitor. 58. Wow, he thought. I guess I strive in this. It's a thread that ties back to that kid back in Highness, throwing fastball under his dad's gaze, or showing rooms to a strangers, or stepping onto a stage at the Wilbur Theater, the oldest in America, they told him. Thanks for the added pressure, he joked, but he loved it. By the way, you would not find the scene described above from the 88 minutes movie in a theatrical release. It is available on DVD and Blu-ray with extended ending only. Neal is a paradox, naturally shy yet electric with a script in hand. I don't have to be Neal McDonough, he'd explain. I can be anybody I don't want please and no one can judge me for it. That freedom fueled him, from his motel days pitching imaginary games to his breakout as Lou Gehrig to commanding stages and screens. Once as a kid he dreamed of LA, not as an actor but a comedian. Well, he would be the scariest looking comedian ever. Now with the career stacked with the villains and one of the highest numbers of on-screen death, Neal McDonough stands as a testament to pressure power. From a quarter-earned coke to a standing ovation at the Wilbur, he is the Highness kid who turned every challenge into a striked-out pitch, delivered with a pinpoint accuracy every time. Neal McDonough's love affair with acting did not start with applauses. It started with a tooth and a tree. From first grade through 8th, he auditioned for every school play, fall and spring, only to land the tiniest roles. A tooth and a tree. I'm better than this, so much better, he thought. A bit of a lisp and dyslexia did not help. His mom tackled with endless patience, working with him night after night. She was his cheerleader, but the stage kept him at arm's length. I'm good at this, he would tell himself even as the part stayed small. Deep down he knew he had something big. Then high school hit, and with it, a shot at You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. Snoopy was up for grabs, and Neal wanted it bad. His mom, a wizard on the piano, drilled him on 2 songs until they were second nature. Audition day loomed, but Neal walked in with a fire most kids don't have. I could care less if I get the part, he thought, a defiance that still drives him today. I don't care if you like me or not, what I'm doing for me. It was pure, selfish joy straight out of Oscar Wilde's playbook. Everything is useless to the artist except the artists themselves. You got to amuse yourself first, he would say, and that's exactly what he did. He stepped into that audition room, belted out his songs, and let loose. No nerves, no second guessing, just Neal, 100% in his element. The director's jaw dropped. That was incredible, he said, looking at that kid he'd never seen. Who are you? Neal McDonough, he shot back. Where are you from? I'm from right here. How have I never seen you in any place? The director pressed. Exactly, Neal replied. I know I'm good at this, but I have never had a shot. The director didn't hesitate. Well, you're gonna be Snoopy. Neal's heart leaped. Thank you, he said, already tasting the stage. Opening night arrived and there was his mom front row. He cranked it. Every line, every move, every bark, and the crowd ate it up. When curtain fell, they shot to their feet, a standing ovation roaring through the room. Neal stood there, soaking it in. Oh, this is that feeling, he thought, the one he would always crave for. An audience hushed, hanging on his every word, giving him their all. You darn well better give it back, he realized, because a good audience deserves everything. It clicked right then. He got it, bone deep. I am going to be the best actor I can be, he promised himself. No more teeth, no more trees, just pure fearless performance. Snoopy was not just a role, it was a launchpad, proof that confidence and a little selfish joy could turn a kid with a lisp into a star. With his mom's faith and stage to claim, Neal McDonough found his calling, and he's been cranking it ever since. Neal McDonough did not just stumble into acting, he was forged in it, shaped by the years of relentless training that could break or make a soul. His journey kicked off at Syracuse University, a powerhouse of fine arts, back then considered one of the best, if not the best in the game. Neal stepped into the world ruled by Arthur Storch, a titan from Actors Studio, who'd bring legends like Bobby Lewis up for master classes. It was a proving ground, and Neal was one of 99 wide-eyed freshmen who started the ride. The program wasn't for the faint of heart. Arthur did not mince words. He would watch a scene, lean back, and deliver a verdict like a judge. "That wasn't very good," he would say. "You should leave the department and find a different major." Then, without a blink, "Next scene, please." Kids crumbled right there, dreams shattered. Neal saw it happen, watched classmates pack up and walk away crushed by such brutality. By graduation, only 12 remained from that original 99. It was a bloodbath, Neal recalls, but that fear of being cut fueled him. Surviving Syracuse did not just teach him acting, it built a steel core confidence. The fire was right there, he would say. By the time he walked across the stage, diploma in hand, he was a force, battle-tested and ready. But he wasn't done. He crossed the Atlantic to sharpen his craft at Lambda in London, peeling more layers onto an already solid foundation. "I had lots of great training before I even got to Hollywood," he would reflect, knowing those years weren't just prep, they were a vessel. It is 1990, and a young Neal McDonough, fresh out of Syracuse and London's acting scene, steps onto his first Hollywood set, Sam Raimi's wild, pulpy superhero flick Darkman. He's not a headliner, not yet. Instead, he's cast as Dock Worker number 2, a small but part in a movie buzzing with the chaos and vengeance. Neal is just 24 years old kid with big dreams and a love for Star Trek, now thrown into a world of mobsters, explosions, and Liam Neeson's tortured scientist turned vigilante. For Neal, it's a blink and you will miss it debut, but it's his foot into the door. He's on the screen for mere seconds, a nameless casualty in Raimi's homage to universal horror and comic book grit. "I would stand in the background of a movie if they asked," he once said about his early days, and Darkman was proof of that hustle. Years later, Neal would laugh about those early gigs. Dock Worker number 2 did not get a standing ovation like his high school Snoopy, but it was a start. Neal McDonough's very first close-up and very first kiss on screen. When and where did it happen? China Beach, a raw, emotional drama about the Vietnam War unsung heroes. This show is its final stretch, airing its 2-hour series finale, Hello Goodbye, on July 22nd, and Neal's got a moving part to play. He's cast as Lurch, a young soldier in a series known for its blend of grit and heart, set against the backdrop of military hospital and R&R station on the South China Sea. Fun fact, despite what you may have heard about Neal's rule to never kiss a woman on screen, that personal law did not kick off till 2003, after he got married to Ravee. For example, in China Beach TV series, which is his first big role with enough screen time and lots of close-up shots, is when Neal actually did what later became a taboo and the line he would not cross, kissing a woman on screen that isn't his wife. And since he wasn't married at that time, it wasn't a sin to bear. Quantum Leap, the beloved sci-fi show where Dr. Sam Beckett leaped through time to fix history's hiccups. It was in Season 4, Episode 2, titled Play Ball, aired on September 25, 1991, and Neal landed the role of Chucky, a minor league baseball player with dreams bigger than the dusty Texas diamond he called home. It is baseball tale with stakes. Chucky's fate hinges on Sam's neck for righting wrongs, and Neal gets to swing for the fences in his scenes. As a good pitcher, Neal doesn't have to pretend. He can throw ball really well. Check out the close to the end scene where Neal's character meets his father. That is some acting as just 25 years old. Neal landed a role in Babe Ruth, a TV movie set to air on NBC. It was October 6, 1991 when the documentary hit screens, directed by Mark Tinker and starring Stephen Land as the larger-than-life Babe Ruth. Neal stepped into the shoes of Lou Gehrig, the Yankees' stoic first baseman and ruthless teammate, in what would become a standout early gig. How did Neal get the role? First of all, technically, according to Neal, Babe Ruth was his very first audition in Hollywood. Neal's cousin, Liam Monahan, flipped open the Cape Cod Times one day and spotted an ad. Open casting, call in Los Angeles next week. They're looking for Lou Gehrig in the Babe Ruth story. You should fly out, Liam urged. Neal, barely out of his teens, booked a ticket. He landed in LA, a young, cocky kid with no idea what he was stepping into. At the audition, faced with a sea of producers and lackluster sides, he tossed the script aside. If you guys heard, he got the part. His first audition, his first win, and the start of the career that would see him die on screen over 60 times and counting. In 1993, Neal McDonough, still building his name, stepped onto the set of Jack Reed, Badge of Honor, a crime drama airing on NBC. This TV movie was the second outing for tough Chicago cop, Sergeant Jack Reed, following Deadly Matrimony. Neal, credited as Wayne Carlson, joined a cast packed with known names. The story kicks off with Reed hunting a killer after a young mother's murder, only to tangle with the web of undercover ops and corruption. Neal's character slots in this grisly puzzle, though his role is small. He is not the headline villain. That's Sandler's Anatoly, an X-ray tech with dark past. Jack Reed Badge of Honor isn't a breakout for Neal. This was him quietly sharpening his edge. White Dwarf, a 94-minute pilot, was pitched as a potential series that never got off the ground. Neal took center stage as Dr. Driscoll Rampart, a brash medical student from New York sent to intern on Rasta, a remote planet orbiting a white dwarf star in the year 3040 AD. The setup was out there. Rasta split by a massive wall, one side a sunlit Victorian colony, the other is shadowy medieval realm. Neal's Driscoll lands there, only to find himself under the mentorship of Dr. Okada. The planet's a power keg, war looms, giant terraforming regulators glitch, and Driscoll's forced to adapt fast. With the cast featuring C.C.H. Pounder and Ellie Keats, Neal carries the story playing a guy who starts cocky but gets humbled by Rasta's strange stakes. Shot near Los Angeles, White Dwarf gave Neal room to shine. His Driscoll a mix of swagger and growth, navigating a world that's half western, half fantasy. It didn't hook viewers enough for a series, and the reviews called it a sluggish, but the production nabbed an ASC award nod for cinematography. For Neal, fresh off smaller roles like Quantum Leap and Jack Reed, this was a breakout moment, his first crack at leading a project, proving he could hold the screen. In 1996, Neal McDonough beamed into the Star Trek universe with Star Trek First Contact, the 8th film in the franchise and a standout for the Next Generation crew. The movie pitted the Enterprise E against the Borg and their time travel plot to stop humanity's first warp flight. Neal stepped aboard as Lieutenant Hawk, the ship's officer, a small role in this sci-fi epic. Neal was living a Star Trek fan's dream, having idolized the original series as a kid. Shot on Paramount lot with ILM effects, The movie grossed $146 million and scored over 90% on Rotten Tomatoes, cementing its place as fan favorite. Neal's screen time is brief, but Lieutenant Hawk's fate sticks. His name even popped up in a later track novel and games. For him, it was a thrill, a notch up from supporting geeks, proving that he could shine in a blockbuster galaxy as well. In 1997, Neal McDonough took a starring role in Circles, released as Crossing Path, a low-budget drama that hit screen on March 27. This 87-minute indie flick aired as a TV movie and landed Neal as Brian, a slick salesman opposite to carefree college kid Jeremy Bonner. Shot on tight indie budget, Circles did not set the world on fire, clocking at 4.7 rating on IMDb and lukewarm nod from critics who called it cheesy, but Neal brought his A-game. He was flexing his chops, moving from beat parts to leads. Playing Brian gave him room to shine as a guy caught between success and soul-searching, a step towards the depth he'd later nail in Band of Brothers. It wasn't a blockbuster, but it snagged some festival buzz and DVD release, proving Neal could carry the story. For Neal McDonough, Circles was a quiet milestone. Brian wasn't a galaxy-saving hero or a villain, just a man at a crossroads, and Neal made him real. It was another brick in the wall of career ready to explode, showing he could hold the screen even in a little indie that dared to dream bigger. In 1999, Neal joined the spooky, blood-soaked world of Ravenous. Quirky score, an oddball vibe won it cult status over time. For Neal, Rake was a pit stop, a soldier. Which side did you have your Thompson on when you slept? Buck, bleary but patient, would chuckle, "Are you kidding me? No, Buck, I need to know." Neal would insist, peppering him with details only a soldier could answer. Spielberg and Tom Hanks caught wind of it. "Please, call your guys," they urged. "They love telling you this stuff. They don't usually talk about it." For Buck, a man of quiet valor, opening up to Neal was a gift. And for Neal, every late-night call was a lifeline, pulling him closer to the heart of Easy Company. From a Cape Cod retreat to a floor in LA, Neal's journey to Band of Brothers was a gamble that paid off in spades. Doubt had nearly sent him home, but a single call and a relentless hunger to get it right turned him into Buck Compton for generation. "I wasn't sure that Hollywood was for me," he would reflect, "but Band of Brothers? That was fate telling me to stay." For Neal McDonough, Band of Brothers isn't just a show, it's a piece of his soul. Over 2 decades have slipped by since it aired, but he hasn't watched it since. "I just can't," he say. The moment the hunting theme music starts, he's done. The notes pull him back instantly to muddy fields, to the weight of the helmet on his head, to the brotherhood that shaped him. Playing First Lieutenant Lynn Buck Compton in the HBO masterpiece wasn't just a role, it was a gift that keeps on giving. Neal met his real Buck during filming, a man who became more than a war hero to him. He became like a second father. Those days on set forged bond that time can't erode. The cast, his Easy Company brothers, remain his best pals to this day. And then there is Rave, his wife, the love of his life. Neal met her during filming Band of Brothers. Together, they have built a life where every project they touch, be it film or show, carries a piece of that brotherhood. There is always a Band Brothers in the cast, on the crew, laced into the fabric of their work. But the deepest echo of Band Brothers reverberates in Neal's family, especially with his oldest son, Morgan. World War II became Morgan's passion, his history class revolving around the very show his dad helped bring into life. One day the school invited Neal to speak about it. He froze. "I can't talk about Band of Brothers for more than 30 seconds, he admits. "If I start on Buck, I'm a mess." The memories flood in and the tears flow. He dodged the talk, thanks to Morgan's golf tournament, but fate had other plans. That very night, Morgan turned to him. "Dad, I was supposed to be in the class today. They were watching episode 7, he said. Episode 7. the one where Neal's Buck Compton unravels, a raw mental breakdown etched into the screen. "Can we watch it? Just me and you tonight?" Neal's heart swelled. "Yeah, of course we can," he replied, though he knew what was coming. They sat side by side on the couch, father and son, as the familiar scenes flickered to life. Neal braced himself, but the dam broke anyway. Tears streamed down his face, silent and steady as he watched his younger self wrestle with the chaos of war. He didn't wipe them away, just sat there letting the emotions spill over. Then he glanced at Morgan. The boy's eyes were wet too. "Now I understand what Buck means to you," whispered Morgan. It wasn't just about seeing his dad act. It was Morgan grasping the weight of Buck's legacy, the man who'd shaped Neal's life and, in turn, his own. The blessing of Band of Brothers washed over him anew, blessings he could barely fathom. A character-defining role, a wife who became his rock, friendships that endured decades, and now this, a son who finally saw the heart of it all. It was one of those moments Neal would never forget. For Neal McDonough, Band of Brothers is more than a memory. It's a living thread that ties his past to his present, his craft to his family. Every note of that music, every frame of that show carries the weight of yesterday's battles and today's love. And in it he found the truest measure of its impact, a legacy passed down, understood, and cherished. Neal carried a secret, one you have to keep close to your heart if you're in Hollywood. But Buck Compton, the real-life war hero Neal brought to life in Band of Brothers, wasn't just a mentor. He was the relentless voice in Neal's ear. "You gotta come out of the political closet. Tell everyone you're Republican." Neal would balk, shaking his head. "I can't, Buck. I can't do that in Hollywood. They will crucify me." But Buck never let go. "You gotta admit it one day," he would insist. For years Neal dodged it. In a town where politics could sink a career, he kept his views close, a quiet conviction he wasn't ready to shout. But Buck's words lingered, a steady drumbeat he couldn't shake. Then came the day that broke the silence, Buck's funeral in Washington. Neal stood before a crowd, a couple thousand strong veterans among them, their faces itched with the weight of history. The moment felt heavy but sacred. He took a deep breath, stepped to Mike, and let it all out. "Forgive me, everyone," he began. "This is gonna sound little like an AA meeting, but I have to say this for Buck." He paused, then let the truth spill. "Hello, my name is Neal McDonough, and I'm a Republican." He felt lighter than he ever had, a burden lifted, a promise kept. Later he would reflect on it with quiet clarity. "When you admit truth, you always feel lighter, don't you?" he would say. Buck had been right. There was freedom in owning who you are, no shame in standing by what you believe. "That's the great thing about our country," Neal would say. "We can talk freely, share how we really feel, and hope people don't point fingers or get angry." It wasn't like that when he was a kid, he would add, a time before the political landscape turned into the battlefield of division. At Buck's funeral, Neal didn't just honor his friend, he honored a lesson. Buck had pushed him to be fearless, to let go of Hollywood's unspoken rules. And in that raw public confession, Neal found something bigger than acceptance. He found peace. A Republican in Tilsontown, unapologetic at last, thanks to the man who wouldn't let him hide. In 2002, Neal stepped into the slick, dystopian world of Minority Report, a sci-fi blockbuster that roared into theaters on June 21st. Directed by Steven Spielberg and starring Tom Cruise, it grossed $358 million. Neal took on the role of Officer Gordon Fletcher, one of the key players in the pre-crime unit back in Cruise in the future where murders are stopped before they happen. Shot in DC and Virginia and LA, with $102 million budget, Minority Report was a leap for Neal post Band of Brothers. Flesh of Buck Compton's heroics, he brought flesh in quiet grit, less flash than Cruz, more backbone than Flair. His screen time isn't massive, but he is a cog in Spielberg's vision, holding the line as the plot twists toward Anderton's redemption. Minority Report was a clean, sharp gig, loyalty under pressure bridging his TV breakout to the big screen heavyweight ahead. In 2004, Neal, riding the wave of Minority Report, stepped into the boots of Jay Hamilton in Walking Tall, a modern action remake starred Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as Chris Vogue, a soldier turned sheriff cleaning up his hometown, with Johnny Knoxville as his scrappy deputy. Neal nabbed the villain slot as Jay, a slick casino boss whose empire fuels the town's rot. With $46 million budget, it held $57 million and 26% on Rotten Tomatoes. Not a critical darling, but a fan pleaser. Shot in just 37 days, Walking Tall was a quick, bruising production. Fun fact, it's a loose riff on the 1973 original, swapping Buford Passer's real-life tale for a leaner, fictional punch. Neal nabbed the pick. His character inspired a WWE SmackDown vs. Raw 2007 video game Betty, Jay Hamilton, voiced by someone else. The casino set was built from scratch in Squamish, only to be trashed on cue. Walking Tall wasn't Neal's debut as Betty, it was more like a breakout. Pre-2004, Agent Ward in One Man's Justice stands as his clearest early villain, a crooked fat with blood on his hands. Jay Hamilton just turned up the volume, giving Neal a bigger stage to strut his sinister stuff. This isn't Neal's first, just his loudest yet, building on a decade of shady characters. Same year, Neal took the lead in Medical Investigation, a medical drama that debuted on NBC. The show ran for 20 episodes before bowing out on March 25, 2005. Neal starred as Dr. Stephen Connor, a Gulf War vet turned head of an elite National Institute of Health team, tasked with cracking bizarre health crises across the US. The series dropped Connor and his crew into outbreaks no one else could solve. Think blue-skinned New Yorkers or deadly flu in Virginia, each hour a new puzzle. Neal's Connor was the glue, a take-charge ex-captain whose career saved millions but cost him his family, leaving him intense, slightly humorless and all-in. Shot with a slick, CSI meets ER vibe, medical investigation filmed in LA, kicking off with a two-parter tied to Third Watch. It nabbed just 17% on Rotten Tomato. Critics found it formulaic, but fans liked it. Neal, post Boomtown's critical buzz, carried the show, his steely focus anchoring a team racing against invisible killers. Medical Investigation did not snag a second season, but for Neal McDonough, Dr. Stephen Connor was a full-on showcase. It was his first solo TV lead, a doctor battling monsters you can't see, providing he could command a series even if the outbreak ended too soon. Neal McDonough does not memorize lines like most actors. He can't. Neal is dyslexic. If you handed me a page to read out loud right now, you would think I'm a moron, he says. Word on paper twist and jumble for him, a struggle he has wrestled since childhood. But there is a flip side, a photographic memory that kicks in like magic. If I read it once or twice, he would explain, I see it in my mind, it sticks. It's his superpower improved over years, turning a hurdle into a gift. And when it came to Flags of Our Fathers with Clint Eastwood, that gift, plus a little help from his wife Rebay, turned him into a one-take legend. The role was a beast, a two-page monologue, a massive speech about why they were sailing to Japan, what it all meant, and why they stood there on that ship. I didn't want to screw up, Neal admitted, feeling the weight of it. Rebay stepped in like a coach. She would wake him up at random hours. Go, she would say, drilling him endlessly. Pages of scripts popped up around the house like Easter eggs, tucked in corners, pinned to the walls. She was always working on my dialogue, he would recall. I thank her for that all the time. By the time he hit the set, those lines weren't just memorized, they were etched into his bones. Filming day arrived on a World War II battleship docked in San Pedro, 1,000 people buzzing around, crew, extras, the workers. 4 cameras stood ready, poised to capture the scene over 2 days. 2 days! Neal smirked at that. I'm a ball player, he'd say. I love game day. First takes, the excitement jazzed me up. He stepped onto that deck like a pitcher stepping onto the mound, adrenaline pumping. The cameras rolled, and he crushed it. Not a syllable missed. Every word landed like a fastball. Clint Eastwood, peeking from behind the lens, let out an "Oh my gosh!" "All right, boys, move in the sticks," he called cameraman. They tightened the shot, 4 cameras, 1 more take, and Neal nailed it again. "Oh gosh, we done," Clint said. 1 more close-up for good measure, and by lunch we were finished. The battleship turned back and the crew celebrated with steaks and lobster, toasting the guy who turned 2 days into a half. Ravey prepared me for that one, Neal would beam. Dyslexia didn't slow him down. It made him sharper, faster, a one-taker wonder who thrived when the lights came on. Neal proved he could see the script in his mind and deliver it like a champ. But then came the stand that changed everything. Back in 2010, Neal was cast as the lead in ABC's new dramedy Scoundrels. Neal walked onto set adhering to a rule he'd held since marrying Ravey in 2003. No on-screen kisses or sex scenes. 3 days in, producers pushed back real hard. He stood firm, citing his Catholic beliefs and loyalty to his wife. They fired him, and the fallout was brutal. Just like that, the phone stopped ringing. Word spread fast. Hollywood labeled him a crazy religious guy. Jobs dried up. Blacklisted whispers turned into a 2-year drought. 2 years in the wilderness. Neal went from a thriving career to a religious zealot in the eyes of Hollywood, and then to unemployed. The losses piled up fast. First the Mercedes, then the house, not just one but 2 houses. Everything he had built crumbled, and he was left grappling with the fallout. Fame, money, stability, all gone. And in that void, the drinking crept in. There he was, an Irish guy in Hollywood, where the drinks flow like water. "Have another one," they would say, pressing glasses into his hand. He would take them, okay, until the nights blurred into a haze. But the deeper he sank, the harder it got to ignore the man in the mirror. 25 pounds heavier, no Jim Palmer leg kick left in him. He was a shadow of the Neal who would once own the screen. "I didn't know how much I disliked that guy," he would later admit, "until I had to face him." The lowest moment came on his knees, tears streaming down his face. "Why have you forgotten about me?" he sobbed to God. He had lost it all: money, houses, work, and there he was, blaming the world. Blaming the person who had fired him from that show, the one who had sparked his spiral. But in that flood of self-pity something shifted. How could I dare say this, he thought. A lot of people get beaten up in life. Everyone gets kicked hard. I'm no special. The realization hit him like a freight train. He became selfish man, wallowing in a single moment instead of fighting to get off the mat. The tide turned in 2012. Graham Yost, creator of Justified, took a chance, casting Neal as the chilling Robert Quarles in Season 3. Airing on FX, it was a lifeline. His unhinged mobster wowed critics, snagging a satellite award nod and pulling him back from the brink. Offers rolled in again. Captain America, Suits, a career reborn. God provided, he would say, crediting Ravey and prayer for carrying him through. Looking back, he would even think about writing that person who fired him a letter. Thanks a million, he would say, meaning every word. Because of that fall, that wilderness wasn't punishment, it was a wake-up call. Before the Blacklist, life had gotten too easy. After Band of Brothers, the roles rolled in, the money piled up, and every dumb joke he told got a laugh. Funny or not. "I'd test it," he would chuckle. "Tell the worst ones on purpose to see who would still laugh." Fame messes with you, he learned. It hands you a boatload of cash and room full of yes men, and suddenly you think you're untouchable, but strong enough, grateful for the kick that knocked him down and the faith that lifted him back up. From the ashes of lost houses and a stalled career, he found what matters most, a life focused, a gift reclaimed, and a story worth telling. Alright, so now this is my personal view on that claim about 2 years of wilderness. It is puzzling that Neal McDonough described 2010 through 2012 as 2 years of drought, when his IMDb credit shows rather steady activity. In 2011 alone, he nabbed Captain America: The First Avenger, Little Birds, Law & Order LA, and few more. So why call it a drought? Perhaps Neal was hinting at a paycheck dip. Short films and voice work didn't match the million-dollar gig he lost with ABC's drama Scoundrels. Still, it sounded a little overdramatic looking at Neal's 2-year scorecard at IMDb. As for the Scoundrels, it lasted 1 season before ABC exited out when series viewership dropped in half over its 3 months airing, with last episode tanking at rating 1.8 out of 5. Neal McDonough time on Justified was anything but ordinary. One day on set, with Rave and her mom watching from the sidelines, he stepped into the scene that was pure chaos. His character, an oxy dealer strung out on his own supply, something called Dolly, was stark naked, folding laundry in dingy room. The absurdity hit a peak when he strolled into the bathroom, high as a kite, and found an 18-year-old guy handcuffed to the toilet. It was so over the top that Neal and Rave couldn't help but crack up. "This is what I get to do," he laughed, revealing in the madness of it all. On set, it was a riot, a twisted slice of fun in the middle of a wild shot. A month later, the vibe shifted. Rave, curious about that scene that she had witnessed, asked to watch it once it aired. Neal agreed and they sat down together. The playback rolled, and when it ended, silence took forever. For 2 days, Rave barely spoke to him. "Honey, what's going on?" he finally asked, cornering her. "You're not talking to me, it's scaring me." She turned to him and said, "I need to know what you were thinking when you walked into that bathroom with that young man. It was so scary." Neal didn't understand it. "You were there that day," he protested. "But I needed to know," she pressed. "You really want to know?" "Yeah." Neal leaned in and said, "I had just had all this oxy," he said, slipping into his character's headspace. "I needed to brush my teeth. That was it. No grand scheme, no sinister move, just a detached, ordinary choice." That's what made it work. The blunt, brutal detachment turned a drugged-up laundry folder into something chilling. "It is so sinister because it's so simple," Neal would later explain. A guy, high on his own stash, casually brushing his teeth next to a handcuffed kid became a villain you couldn't shake. That is also why Neal avoids watching his own work. "I don't want to steal from myself," he would explain. Each character he builds is a fresh slate, no recycling tricks or borrowing from past roles. The oxy dealer's toothbrush moment? That was unique to him, a one-off born from a clear, cold choice. "I keep it simple," Neal would say, and that simplicity paired with his refusal to look back keeps every performance raw and new. In 2011, Neal joined Marvel Cinematic Universe with Captain America: The First Avenger, hitting theaters on July 22nd. This World War II epic launched Steve Rogers, played by Chris Evans, into superhero glory grossing $370 million and earning a 79% approval on Rotten Tomatoes. Neal took on Timothy Dum Dum Dugan, the bowler-headed, mustachioed brawler of the Howling Commandos. Set in 1942, the film follows Roger's transformation from scrawny kid to super soldier, tasked with stopping Hydra's Johann Schmidt. Neal's Dugan enters as a captured POW freed by Cap in a fiery raid on Hydra's base. With his .30 caliber machine gun and brash charm, he's muscle and moral for the Commandos. Neal's got a standout moment grinning under that iconic hat, rallying his squad with a quip and slug of whiskey, a note to the comic cigar-chomping vet. Shot across England, Manchester, Liverpool and Surrey, with $140 million budget, the film blended retro grit with Marvel flair. Neal, post-Tin Man and Walking Tall, nabbed the role over Scott Porter thanks to his rugged vibe per casting buzz. Fun fact, he pushed for Dugan's comic-accurate mustache and bowler, a detail fans ate up. Though his screen times lean amid Cap's rise, Neal's Dugan shines a loyal soldier with a swag, later popping up in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Agent Carter. Captain America wasn't Neal's McDonough spotlight, but Dum Dum Dugan gave him a roaring MCU debut. From Hydra's cages to the front lines, he carved a piece in Marvel history, proving he could swing with the supers and keep climbing. In 2013, Neal jumped into the action comedy chaos of Red 2, hitting theaters on July 19th. Directed by Dean Parisot, this sequel to 2010 Red brought back Bruce Willis as an ex-CIA operative Frank Moses, with John Malkovich, Mary Louise Parker, and Helen Mirren, plus new additions to the cast, Anthony Hopkins and Catherine Zeta-Jones. Neal snagged the role of Jack Harton, a cold-blooded American agent. Movie has grossed $148 million on $84 million budget, earning 45% on Rotten Tomatoes. Shot across Montreal, London and Paris, Red 2 leaned on its star power. Neal brought his villain A-game, honed from Walking Tall and Justified. Critics called it a mixed bag, but fans loved the ride, nabbing it a People's Choice nod for favorite thriller. Red 2 wasn't Neal's deepest dive, but Jack Harton let him flex his icy edge. A relentless hunter in a wild spy chase, he proved once again he could steal the scene, even if the bomb got the last word. In 2016, a 50-year-old Neal took a softened turn in Greater. This faith-based sport drama directed by David Hunt with $9 million budget. Neal starred as Marty, the grieving older brother of Brandon, the Arkansas Razorbacks legendary walk-on who died in 1999 car crash just days after being drafted by the NFL's Indianapolis Colts. Shot in Arkansas, Greater marked Neal's first time as an executive producer with wife Hervé, a personal pivot after years of darker parts. Brandon's real glasses and truck were used, grounding the film's authenticity. Neal even met Marty to nail the vibe. It pulled $2 million in the box office and scored a Dove Foundation seal for its uplifting tone. Critics noted its faith-heavy lean, but fans loved the tear-jerking truth. Neal went with DC, starring in CW Arrow as its Season 4 Big Bad, Damien Darhk, an ex-League of Assassins mystic-turned-hive mastermind, brought magic and menace to Star City, earning the show an 85% on Rotten Tomatoes for its bold swing. Shot in Vancouver, Season 4 leaned on Neal's villain street credibility. Darhk was pitched as pure evil by ex-producer, but Neal added humor, improvising lines that stuck, like mocking Oliver's "You failed the city" catchphrase. He nabbed a Saturn Award nod for Best Guest Star, and fans loved his return in Legends of Tomorrow. Arrow Season 4 with Damien Darhk made it Neal's deadliest villain. A magical tyrant with a wicked grin, he ruled Star City's darkest hour, fortifying Neal's as a TV terror worth rooting against. Chilean World of 1922, a Netflix horror drama directed and written by Zach Hilditch, an adaptation of Stephen King's 2010 novel From Full Dark, No Stars, starred Thomas Jane as farmer Wilfred James, with Neal as Harlan, a moral anchor in this grim tale. Shot in Vancouver, it earned 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, lauded for its slow burn dread. With the budget under $5 million, 1922 leaned on atmosphere, rats, wrath, and regret over gore. The Rugged World of Yellowstone Season 2, which premiered on Paramount Network, created by Taylor Sheridan and John Linson, starring Kevin Costner as ranch patriarch John Dutton, racked up at a whopping 100% Rotten Tomatoes for its fierce family saga. Neal stepped in as Malcolm Beck, a slick casino mogul and the season's big bad, squaring off against the Duttons with deadly stakes. Shot in Utah and Montana, Yellowstone leaned on Neal's villain credit, fresh from Damien Darhk. Neal joined production late, announced in January 2019 via Deadline, replacing Tim McGraw, who had been eyed for the similar role. Season 2 drew 8 million viewers by its August 2018 finale, cementing its grip. Critics admired its raw intensity, and Neal's back fueled the fire, a foe who pushed the Duttons to their edge. Season 4 of Suits, starring Gabriel Macht as Harvey Specter and Patrick J. Adams as Mike Ross, kept its sharp edge, with Neal joined as Sean Cahill, a relentless CS prosecutor shaking up Pearson Specter's polished world. This season dives into the chaos after Mike ditched law for finance, leaving Harvey scrambling. Neal's Sean enters as Eric Woodall attack dog, tasked with sniffing out dirt on the firm. He is a bulldog, blunt, tenacious, grilling Harvey and Lewis over shady deals tied to Gillis Industries. Initially an enemy, Sean flips when Mike and Harvey exposes Woodall's corruption, turning him into an uneasy ally by season's end. Neal's in 7 episodes, from Pound of Flesh to the finale, not just a pretty face, locking horns with the team before joining their corner. In 2016, Neal crash-landed into DC's Legend of Tomorrow, the CW's wild time travel spin-off. The show ran 7 seasons through 2022, starring Katie Lotz as Sarah Lance, and a ragtag crew fixing history's messes. Neal reprised Damien Darhk, his Arrow Season 4 Mystic Baddie, as a recurring menace, evolving into a series regular by Season 2. Darhk first popped up in Season 1 premiere, Pilot Part 1, a 1942 flashback showing him as a smirking League of Assassins renegade, already a thorn in Rip Hunter's side. Neal's role exploded in Season 2 as part of the Legion of Doom, teaming with the Reverse Flash and Malcolm Merlyn, chasing the Spear of Destiny to rewrite reality. He is killed off by Sarah, but time travel's a funny thing. Season 2 and 3 locks him in as a regular, clashing with the legends across eras like Viking Villages and the Wild West. His arc peaks with a twist, aligned with Sarah to save his daughter Nora, only to die again sacrificing himself. He returned in Season 5 as Ghostly Guy, helping Nora and even facing a hell encore with Astra. By Season 5, he is killed off yet again. This is probably Neal's record of how many times his character died in a single TV series. Season 2, Darhk is eventually defeated when the Legends reclaim the spear and restore the timeline. Season 3, Damien returns, resurrected by his daughter Nora, and serves as a major villain. He allies with the demon Malus, though he ultimately betrayed Malus to save Nora. In a redemptive arc, he sacrifices himself to stop Malus, allowing the legend to defeat the demon. Season 5, Damien reappears in a ghost role after being resurrected temporarily by Astra Logue's Encores. Initially returning as a villain, he eventually reconciles with Nora and helps her choose a different path. And in conclusion, he kills himself with the Hell Sword to ensure Nora's happiness. Project Blue Book, a History Channel series that ran 2 seasons, 20 episodes total, ending March 24, 2020 with 65% on Rotten Tomatoes. Neal starred as General James Hardin, a Hart Air Force brass co-founding the titular project opposite to Dr. J. Allen Hynek and Captain Michael Quinn. Set in 1950s and 60s, Project Blue Book rips off the real-life UFO probes, with Hardin steering Hynek and Quinn through cases like Roswell and Flatwoods. Neal's Hardin, modeled loosely on Brigadier General William Garland, a staffer under General Charles P. Cabell, is a Cold War hardliner obsessed with control. He is no believer. He pushes the team to debunk sightings, hiding truth behind weather balloons, while clashing with Hynek's growing curiosity. The series kicked off with 2.5 million viewers, history's biggest debut since 2016. Neal's kids got a kick out of him playing UFO gatekeeper, a sort of nod to his Star Trek roots. In 2020, Neal joined the final chapter of The 100 Season 7, a post-apocalyptic saga. Neal stepped in as the steely leader of the Disciples, a cult-like faction on the planet Bardo, shaking up the endgame. Season 7 picks up after Sanctum Chaos with Bellamy snatched by the Disciples, time-dilating zealots chasing transcendence via cosmic test. American Horror Story double feature, which premiered on FX on August 25th. Created by Ryan Murphy and Brad Falchuk, Season 10 split into 2 tales, Part 1, Red Tide, and Part 2, Death Valley, where Neal starred as President Eisenhower. This 4-episode arc dives into 1950s alien conspiracies with Neal front and center. Death Valley kicks off in black and white 1954, with Neal's a spot-on take on 34th US President golfing in Palm Springs when UFO crashes near Edwards Air Force Base pulls him into chaos. He's the military titan, supreme elite commander turned leader, facing Maria Wyckoff and her extraterrestrial posse after they resurrect Amelia Earhart. President is forced into gut-wrenching pact, alien tech for human test subjects. Back into the world of superhero. Once again, Neal reprised Damien Darhk, his Arrow mystic villain popping up in The Flash, bringing dark magic to Central City. Darhk first blinks in during Season 2's a crossover with Arrow. It's a quick hit, less than few minutes, but Neal's icy green sets the stage. He is back in Season 8, Armageddon arc. Here, in reverse Flashpoint twist, Darhk is redeemed dead to Nora. In 2022, Neal swaggered into 911 Lone Star, a Fox spin-off that kicked off its 3rd season on January 3rd. It is Austin-set drama, starring Rob Lowe as Captain Owen Strand. Blends first respond heroics with the personal stakes. Neal debuted as Sergeant O'Brien, a hard-nosed Austin PD sergeant in Season 3, sparking a feud with Owen. Season 3, Red vs. Blue, drops Neal into a call where a teen joyriders crash pits police against firefighters. O'Brien by the book grit clashes with Owen's Maverick style, starting with a truck-moving spat that goes viral, leading to a softball showdown to settle the score. It's a one-off guest spot, but Neal's clash with Lowe steal the show, drawing 4.8 million viewers. Fans loved it and so did Fox. By September 2022, Deadline reported Neal's bump to reoccurring for Season 4. Shot in LA despite its Texas badge, Season 4 leaned on Neal's knack for flipping from foe to friend, a twist surprise for viewers used to Neal's villains. Neal McDonough has spent decades as Hollywood's ultimate bad guy. From the gritty streets of Whitey Bulger to the infernal depth of Lucifer in The Shift, he owned the art of villainhood. Hollywood makes a lot of dark, crazy stuff, he admits, and I'm guilty of being part of it. For years, that was his gig, providing for his kids meant embracing the role of the villain of villains. No good guys without bad ones, Neal would point out. The worse the villain, the better the hero shines. It was a job he tackled with delight, diving deep into the darkness to make the light stand out. The Shift is the movie that tested his limits. The Benefactor, a devilish figure steeped in shadow. At first, Neal flat out refused. "I can't play the devil," he told them. "I'm not going that far." It wasn't pride or fear of typecasting, it was deeper, a line he had drawn rooted in faith. But Reve, his wife, wouldn't let it drop. They sat together, talked it over, even prayed about it. "You're probably the best villain in Hollywood," she said. "And you have got one of the strongest relationships with God in Hollywood. Who else could do that right?" The logic hit him hard. Without that balance, it could turn slimy, weird, a caricature that fall flat. "And don't you always say, if someone asks, you do it?" she pressed, echoing his own mantra. Reve saw something more, a challenge Neal couldn't ignore. "You have got to find humanity in Lucifer," she urged. That stuck with him, boring into his brain. Sure, he thought, turning it over. Lucifer wasn't just evil incarnate. He had been God's guy once, an angel who fell, flawed like the rest of us. We all make mistakes, Neal mused. Maybe this wasn't just about playing a villain. Maybe it was about showing a glimmer of something redeemable, even in the darkest soul. As corny as it sounds, he would laugh, I kept thinking, what if Lucifer watches this and thinks, maybe it's time to get back to the good side? It was a wild notion, but it fueled him. He took the role not for glory, but because they asked, and because he could bring something real to it. In The Shift, Neal didn't just play the benefactor. It wasn't about topping his villainous resume. It was about the craft he loves, the trust he shares with Reve, and the belief that every character, even the devil, has a story worth telling. People know me as a great actor, he'd say, but they can't pin me down. I have been blessed because of it. And with The Shift, he proved it again, acting not for trophies, but for the sheer, unshakable joy of stepping into someone else's skin, flaws and all. The Shift marked a turning point in movie production, a film that wasn't just another paycheck but a mission. Produced by Angel Studios, it redefined how Neal saw his craft. Angel's model was radical, crowdfunding dreams into reality. The Shift drew 6,000 investors. Their names scrolling endlessly at the end feels like longer than the movie itself. At Angel, a project pitches to the guild. If it hits 50% approval rating, crowdfunding kicks in. Once it reaches a threshold, the Angel Accelerator Fund matches it and the film gets made. For Neal, it's a dream come true. Alongside Reve, his wife and creative partner, he is inked in first-look deal with Angel. The Shift was just the start. Then came Homestead, which they co-produced, wrapping part 1 with one more on the horizon. Black Spartans is next, followed by the last. First film together cost $500,000, scrapped together with grit and faith. Then their friend Billy Jackson jumped in for the next $1.5 million. $3 million followed, then another, then 5 for Black Spartans. When Neal McDonough signed for the Tuslakin, he wasn't sure what to expect. He and Reve hoped on a Zoom call with Sylvester Stallone, and Neal couldn't hide the excitement. This is Stallone, he thought, buzzing like a kid meeting his hero. He had heard the rumors. Sly could be tough, difficult even, but Neal had tangled with tricky folks before. Let's see what this is like, he decided, ready to roll the dice. Day one on set blew every whisper out of the water. Stallone wasn't just prepared, he was a machine. He knew Neal's line, his own, the scenes they had shot 2 weeks back, and what was coming next. The guy helped write the scripts, kept his wife and kids close on set, and at 78 years old, he moved like a man half his age, veins popping even in his fingernails, shredded from daily workouts. He makes us look like weenies, Neal recalls, watching Stallone dive in with a fire that never flickered. Off cameras, some actors relax, but not Sly. Neal, who prides himself on giving buckets of energy even when the lens isn't on him, found a kindred spirit. A few weeks in, he was feeding Stallone reactions off camera, throwing everything he had. When it was Sly's turn, Neal wondered, will he be up for this? And Stallone? He went full throttle, grabbing himself, tensing up, raging so hard it looked like he hurt. Holy smokes, Neal thought. One of the greatest actors ever is killing himself off camera for me. Their first scene together was a showdown, a pissing contest between two tough-as-nail characters. Neal's guy squared off against Stallone's. Neal doesn't just play a role, he becomes it. Locked in, untouchable. As Stallone got in his face, Neal fired back, mimicking Sly's iconic growl. You think you're some kind of tough guy? He saw Stallone's fist clench, a real spark of anger flaring. He is feeling this, and Neal decided to push harder. Robbie was worried. No, you can't do that day one, he will fire you. But Neal waved her off. Honey, I think he's liking this, he said, trusting his gut. He kept at it, take after take, leaning into the heat. When they wrapped, Stallone didn't storm off. He pulled Neal into a bear hug. Dude, that's what we want on this show, said Sly. You brought in, I'm gonna give it back. We are making something great this season. The first clash wasn't just a scene, it was a pact. Two guys who live for the game, pushing each other to the edge, building something electric. From a risky Stallone impression to a season-defining bond, Neal McDonough found a match in Sly, and together they lit up the season 2 of Tulsa King. Now, The Last Rodeo sits at 8 million, directed by John Abnett, with the killer cast assembled. Neal wrote, "Think it's as wild as me in a dress." Even when he roared around on his Harley, it was polo and khakis all the way. Did you ever think of wearing jeans? Neal responds, I don't have any. Sure, he rocks denim in movies. Those rugged westerns he has been riding into lately come with the wardrobe department that dresses him up right. I love wearing jeans, he would admit, but I'm a khaki guy, always have been. It is not about fashion or fitting in, it's about comfort, pure and simple. I don't care so much what everyone thinks, he would shrug. For Neal, khakis aren't just pants. They're a badge of that eternal kid. The one who rode his bike like a Harley would rather amuse himself than impress the crowd. His kids rip him, sure, but they get it. That is a khaki guy through and through, forever young where it counts. I am comfortable in it, he would say, and that's that, a man who's aged but never outgrow the joy of being himself, polo shirt and all. Neal McDonough does not chase trophies. If you do it for awards, get out, he would say. For him, acting isn't just about accolades. It's about love, pure and simple. I just love acting, he would confess. There is no place in the world I'm as comfortable as in front of a camera or on stage. It is a strange truth, one that even he finds bizarre if you dig into it. But step onto a set, hand him a script, and he's home, more at ease than anywhere else. That's the fire that's fueled a career spanning infomercials to blockbusters, TV gigs to indie gems. If someone asks me to do it, I'll do it, he would explain. It is a God will, it's the right thing. From the smallest gig to the grandest stage, Neal has built a reputation as a yes man in the best way, a great actor, impossible to pin to just one role, blessed by a career that's keep him moving. Thank you for watching and we'll see you next time.